Welcome to the Inspiring Tech Leaders podcast with me, Dave Roberts. This week, my special guest is David Neitz, who is the Chief Information Officer at CDM Smith and also a member of the Microsoft Services Executive Board. David was selected by EFCG as the CIO of the Year in 2018 and received the CIO Leadership Award from MIT in 2016. He has an MBA degree from the University of Colorado, Denver, and has also studied at the University of Phoenix. I've had the pleasure to work with David during my career, and he has been an inspirational leader for myself and many others. It's great to have you here today, David.
Well, Dave, it's great to catch up with you again. It's my pleasure, and thank you for inviting me.
So I know you've spoken to me before about your career history and the journey that you went on, and I thought this would be a really great podcast to have to share with our listeners. So perhaps if you start out by just telling us, how did you get into a career in IT, and what career path did you follow to get into the leadership roles that you've got today?
Yeah, it's probably a little bit different, non-traditional path, I think, than maybe other leaders have experienced. But actually, I started out my career when I was working for a trucking company, actually, Illinois California Express, no longer in existence. But I was actually working at night there and actually going to a community college during the day to learn technology. And once I got far enough into it, I actually approached the CIO of the company and said, I'm learning these new things. I'd be excited to join his organization. So I'd show up in his office every Friday morning and persist with him until he finally gave me an opportunity. And I started out as a computer operator running computer operations for the company. I optimized that and had some free time and was able to do some development work because I had 2 to 3 hours extra every night that I was able to free up my time to focus on that. So I went to the director of development there and said, hey, look, I got this free time. I'm taking classes during the day. I'd love to, get into your organization. So she gave me an opportunity to get into doing development as well. So I continued working full-time and going to college full-time. Had opportunity to try just about every part of technology. I've worked help desk. One thing I've not done is desktop support, but I've done development. I've done project management, PMO organization, building that out. But I think in what really caused my career to take off was working with, her name was Judy Roberge, and we're actually formalizing a formal mentorship program within my group, because I think it's, when I look back on my career, having people like Judy in my career have really helped me expand my capability and knowledge. So she actually sponsored me for the executive MBA program at the University of Colorado and really taught me how to look at technology through the lens of business. Before, I think I was really into technology. I enjoyed it. It was lots of fun. But I was really into the technology and kind of lost sight. I really didn't think about the business aspect of the impact it can have on business. And she helped reframe my thinking more towards that of business focus, which I think is critical for success for any CIO or anyone getting into this, is to really keep in mind technology for technology's sake really doesn't matter. Then I think the other part of it that's really changed me is a focus on innovation and wanting to be naturally curious. And that is something that I've done throughout my life. Actually, when I was a kid, I would tear things apart just to figure out how they work. Most of the time I could get it back together. Sometimes I couldn't. My parents weren't too thrilled with that idea, but I found things worked that way. But having that natural curiosity, I think, in my career, figuring out how to harness that natural trait I had around curiosity and applying it, innovation and innovative thinking. I think another element that really helped me, I was chairman of the Autodesk Cloud Advisory Board. And the CIOs that were part of that group, we kind of had struggled with, our traditional challenges and approaches to things, having most things at that time on premise. And there was a gentleman there, Bill O'Connell, who actually did a project called the Innovation Genome Project, where he actually looked at all innovations that happened through history and then boiled it down to essentially 7 questions you should challenge yourself to answer. Now, in reality, there's 49 questions because once you ask the first 7, there are 7 follow-on. So it's not as simplistic as just 7. But it really helped me have a framework to challenge my thought process of how I think about innovation. And then just surrounding myself with people that really have that, that are smarter than me. That's what I really think has helped me to think differently about how I would lead. I don't try to be the smartest person in the room because there are certainly a lot of bright people out there, and you got to give them an opportunity to help provide input as well. So, and that's what I really enjoyed when you and I worked together, Dave, is that innovation, curiosity, collaboration element that really stretched my thinking as well.
How do you go about creating a culture of innovation? Where do you start?
Well, generally, I started with something called the do not do list. We're really good at creating to-do lists and adding more to our already full day. You got to have capacity to do innovation. Time capacity, that's our most precious resource we have as leaders, is how do we take the time capacity that's limited and free it up. So we started with kind of the concept of what can we stop doing? What are the things that aren't creating value? And I actually heard that strong message from our current CEO. Him and I, Tim Wall, presented to a group of peers, and the messaging that we presented was value creation. So challenge everything you're doing and understanding, is it creating value? And then if it isn't, stop doing it. And then how do you look at the various types of innovation? There's incremental innovation, and there's, at the very far extreme, is disruptive innovation. And if you can have everyone think about, it doesn't have to be disruptive to have an impact. Incremental innovations that are consistently executed have a massive impact. And I think that's one thing that I've learned over time, is to have that innovation mindset that really changes the way you look at things, and to look at it in a way that allows you to have innovation capacity and look at everything you're doing to see what is it that I could look at it differently and apply it. Now, disruptive certainly it's almost like a portfolio approach of investments of innovation. Not everything can be disruptive, and it's more challenging certainly to apply disruptive innovation to the organization from a change management and the risk factor. There's a certain risk factor that you have to be comfortable with, and getting that risk tolerance is important. Now, as the company I work for are engineers. So when they engineer a building or a bridge or something like that, that can't fail. That's we had a failure there. That's okay. We'll try again next time. Mm-hmm. It's not the mindset. So to get a group of engineers who are focused and ingrained with this, failure is not something that should happen, but to be comfortable with it, but managing risk at the same time, I think is kind of how I've been framing our approach to innovation.
But when you're trying to create that area of innovation to occur, but then also simultaneously got to keep the lights on, the business as usual activities, how do you manage those to the operational side versus that creative innovation? How do those two things balance out?
Yeah, that's always a challenge, to find that right balance between. It's certainly important to keep the lights on, keep things operating efficiently, because if you're not doing that well and the business isn't happy, they're certainly not going to trust you to do the more innovation components. So that you definitely have to continue to have a strong focus in on that maintenance component of it. But what I found also is that You shouldn't assign a group of people to always doing maintenance, because that gets tedious. They feel like they're the second-class citizen, that they're not really getting the opportunity to expand their career and develop themselves. One of the things I did when I first joined the company here at CDM Smith is I didn't ask for any more money, because I don't think we were investing the money wisely that we had. And just like a portfolio manager for your current investments, financially for your retirement, for example, if they're not getting the performance out of their investments they have by getting rid of them, then why would you give them more money? Same thing here is how do you then optimize that cost and development and free up time again to have the innovation. But really important not to have somebody tagged as a maintenance person only and rotate them through and have them to give the opportunity to incrementally improve what we're doing to maintain the current, so it takes less time and capacity, but then give them the ability to experiment on some of these disruptive technologies and participate in that.
What sorts of innovations are you looking to adopt?
We've adopted artificial intelligence as a company and as a group, and not just AI for AI's sake, but looking at the sensors that feed AI and what are some of the new sensors that you can apply for the data that's necessary to feed AI. For example, drones. We're the first in our industry to get FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, approval to fly drones, and that, by adding new sensors to those drones, you get new data input that wasn't possible before at a frequency that wasn't viable. Yeah, maybe you flew an airplane or a helicopter or something to get the information. The other one is looking at other senses that are coming into play. The autonomous vehicles have really brought down the cost of LiDAR. Waymo has this honeycomb device that we're experimenting with that actually can allow you to do some three-dimensional images at a very cost-effective point that wouldn't have been practical, because the LiDAR equipment traditionally we use in our industry is hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars. So very costly to use that. Low orbit satellites. We've been really into understanding what information and data we can get from low orbit satellites with their radar imagery. We can actually even detect groundwater down to 3 meters deep and detect the chemical signature of treated water. So you can look at something called non-revenue water, which is a big problem in our industry, where they're not getting revenue from water that's being treated and because of leakage or other factors. And if they can identify that's where that's happening, they don't have to build out additional plants. Really proud of that. Mixed reality, we've been applying mixed reality pretty extensive with the HoloLens. Just used it recently. You may recall Nepal had a major earthquake several years ago, and we had a USAID project to rebuild 12 schools and 6 hospitals to make them earthquake resistant and have the capacity to train the skills in that country to help them be more self-sufficient. But a key part of that was to be able to have remote participants participate in review and designs. And we're having them show up as avatars in the room with us, and we can walk through a design collaborative together, and also using holographic markups when some of these locations are pretty remote locations in Nepal, and having the ability to have that remote assistance capability with holographic markup capability. So you can mark up what you have questions about and everybody sees it and can collaborate. Having a global team participate in that way, just been really excited. Computer vision, we're doing, you'll probably cut some of this out because
it's fantastic. You're doing loads.
I love what we're doing with computer vision. Our clients in transportation industry have all these cameras that they use, CCT cameras, but they really haven't used it as a sensor very effectively in detecting wrong way drivers. It can actually look at erratic lane usage around, maybe an impaired driver. It just having the ability then to look at various behaviors that could be a safety concern for that entity, and using computer vision, which has really dramatically improved over time. Also applying that for safety to say, look, does everyone have a hard hat? This is a hard hat area. Does that person have a hard hat on? We can detect that as well. So it's those types of things that I think can add to the safety of how we do things and help our clients as well. That's just some of the things that we've been working on that I'm really proud of the team, just jumping in and trying these things out and experimenting and going through that learning curve.
With all this new technology that we have access to now, and part of that is the democratization of technology and the accessibility to a much wider group, and to be able to use computing at scale, which just wasn't possible if we look back sort of 5 years or so ago. All those things you've talked about, that must be, well, there's a few things there. One, it must be increasing the amount of data that you're dealing with, and those sort of big data projects becoming more and more important. And then the skill set that you need is changing as well. So do you find that you're looking for more data scientists now that than you were before? Are these skills that you're struggling to find in the market, or you're able to develop staff internally?
Well, we actually have what I consider a holistic approach, because if I try to go out and just hire pure, highly skilled data scientists, they're demanding top dollars now because it's high demand. Everybody's doing it. Everybody's exploring it, investing in it. So we kind of have a holistic approach. We go all the way from interns, bring in interns and maturing them through that. But one of the things we're doing that we think is necessary for scale, we have the fortunate situation that we have a bunch of engineers in our company that have a strong math background. And actually what we're finding is some of those engineers are coming out of college with Python and R skill sets already. And we want to have them with their domain expertise and have the AI capability. Now, we don't want them to be like the hardcore detailed data scientists. We just want them to understand how to use it as another tool. And when they get into a complex situation, we'll have some data scientists that have the skill set to help back them up, and have that mix of, we want to become an AI-enabled organization. So scale it beyond business technology within the group that I support. Also, it's just investing in our current resources. If I hired and fired based on skill set, I'd have a revolving door for sure. So we really want to invest in the current people and get their skill sets up. I think that's a great way to invest in it as well, is to invest in your people. And then they see that you're investing in them. It really has helped, I think, with our retention rate as well.
That's great to hear. And with just thinking about the types of projects that you're working on, and the operational technology piece, I guess, it's different types of thinking in terms of traditional security models, perhaps. So the security posture has become much more of a focus at board level now, I think, than it was, only a few years ago. So, how are you finding that from the ever-changing landscape around digital security?
That's a very good point, Dave, because I think that most of the things I've talked about have a new attack vector effectively that is opening up. Exactly, right? Because you have all these IoT devices that are out there. So we're creating some digital twin capability for our clients. So we take a hydraulic model, and then we have sensors that sense what's actually happening in the flow and comparing the two. But all these sensors are now an attack vector. So to have the great benefit of like a digital twin, you're going to have to put these IoT devices out there, which then you can have them do edge compute. So you somewhat isolate them and give them some separation, but it still opens up an attack vector. So we're really heavily investing in looking at blockchain technologies We kind of traditionally think of that, as Bitcoin and financial transactions, but it can actually help in other areas of that ecosystem that we create to help have the ability to have secure communications between edge devices, edge compute devices, and actually back to the cloud if necessary for additional compute capacity. So we actually have built out our security team pretty dramatically because we're getting all kinds of new regulations coming in too. We have GDPR, which you're certainly very familiar with.
Yeah.
Our federal government is requiring called CMMC, which is capability maturity model. That's absolutely to work for the federal government. You got to have all these other requirements, the NIST 800, 171. You just add all of these regulatory things that are being required of us. It's also forcing us as an organization to have more structured discipline around security, because these regulations, even though sometimes we may think they could be excessive, they still point out some very good techniques and approaches that any IT organization should adopt. But actually, I scaled our security group from 1.5 people that were kind of doing it in a part-time mode. Now we're up to 8 full-time people within the organization, only focusing on security. And we're also offering the service out to our clients because we create these SCADA control systems that control critical infrastructure. If you want to shut down a city, you shut down the power, you shut down the water. And how do we make sure that we, as providers of the SCADA systems, think of security as the primary instrument of protecting our clients, so that we have not as an afterthought, but design it into. One of the visions that, one of my crazy visions, maybe, but I think it's a really good one, hopefully I'll validate it sometime in the future, is to actually create our critical infrastructure with security in mind. So that you put in physical design elements as well as logical design elements that secure it, because the next war is going to be happening with cyber. And how do you then, through physical design and segregation capabilities, you could actually harden it at not too much of an extreme cost additive, but it could be a differentiator and help protect these critical infrastructure around the world. And then also just protecting us as a company. And we're all targeted. Our biggest risk is certainly people. We're doing a lot of our own internal phishing campaigns, but it's something that you just have to continue to be very repetitive in training people so that you can manage probably the most significant risk vector we have within any organization.
It's interesting. I think you talked about many things there. Security by design is being one of those key things that I think is becoming more and more important each day. And DevSecOps now is one of the most in-demand roles, I would have thought. It's because you need to have that development capability, but with a very much a very close lens around security and the security posture, and making sure that whatever you're producing, the security has been built in in its very DNA from the onset, and it's not an afterthought that comes later on to almost check what's already being built. It's making sure that it's ingrained into the foundation of what you're doing.
Yeah, and you're right. The board has hypersensitivity to this as they've seen so many attacks happening out there. And we're offering up new software as a service solutions. And there's a big concern that what exposure does that present for the company, and how do you design that in there? The analogy I like using to demonstrate my previous point is, imagine you built a prison. And then after you finish building it, you said, okay, now how are we going to keep the inmates in? You think, well, that's ridiculous, right? You think, well, of course you would have thought about that. Well, why don't we think the same mindset of, well, yes, design it into it and just become inherent the way we do it. Everyone think that way for everything we do. And then I think it positions yourself. Now, certainly advanced persistent threats of nation states they are going to penetrate. But the key is detection and resiliency, and build that in. I think is a key part of it.
So what do you think are the main challenges that are facing technology leaders today?
Well, I think one of the big challenges is just getting our clients to fully understand the different mindset of these technologies. There's a real resistance that I see out there for artificial intelligence. Singularity is what everybody's afraid of. The whole, they're going to take over, they're going to run the world, they're going to put me out of a job. It's really not the case. A lot of the things we're proposing to optimize the operations of a plant, for example, a water treatment plant or wastewater treatment plant, for example, they can automate a lot of those tasks, but then they're worried that, okay, it's going to put those resistors because they'll say it's going to put me out of a job. I think they've got to look past will there be a shift in jobs and a shift in the way that we're doing things? Our engineers think the same thing. Are we going to build such a good AI model that it makes their job obsolete? And the thing I try to help them understand is that it's just a different way of doing it. And AI is not innovative. It struggles just to do basic general knowledge things, let alone innovative, creative thought process that is uniquely human. And when I tell our engineers, we're going to automate some of what you're going to do here. And there's a part of this design that's just repetitive that doesn't really have much of an impact or value for our client. Why don't we free you up so we can unleash that innovative, creative side of you so we have time so that they can invest in redesigning an element that's either very power intensive or chemical intensive that causes some issues, and they can create a new innovative thing that I think will be more job fulfilling for them. And it actually gets created as a differentiator for us in the business, because they'll look at it as, wow, that's innovative, that's creative, versus us just doing it the same way we've been doing it. And just that getting past, that's the way we've always done it, approach to things, and embracing a new way of looking at it, and getting past that change management. Inherently, humans are resistant to change, and we just have to acknowledge that and persist to really get them educated as to why this is an overall benefit.
It's really interesting that you say that, because it feels like the same conversations that have been had for decades now. When you just going on what you said, because my dad, he used to be a structural and mechanical engineer. And I remember there's been similar sorts of conversations when they were talking about coming off the boards, the big sort of AO draft boards, and moving on to AutoCAD. It was the same sort of thing of, my job's going to go away. I'm not going to be able to do the same thing. And I remember my dad, when he first started using AutoCAD, goodness knows which version of it was back then. But this is going back, many years ago. It was the same conversation, but it's the same theme.
Yeah,
you need to continue to evolve and change, or you will get left behind. So that's the same across all industries in some respects. So it's really interesting you say about people's view of what AI is and what it can do, and the hesitation that some people perhaps have with it.
Yeah, no, and like you and I acknowledge that, even though we're technologists, that success of any project, technology is only 10% of it. As much as we like to think, oh wow, we're just this technology stuff is great, the other 90% is the really hard part. That you have to deal with the human factors, the process redesign, everything else that you need to deal with to really allow the technology to fulfill its benefit and promise. And as technologists, we have to not lose sight of that, because sometimes I think we get so caught up in the technology that we think this great technology is going to solve the problem. And it will and can, but only if that other 90% happens. And we're still dealing at the end of the day with human beings that have change resistance and other aspects of just dealing with humans that we're going to have to always be challenging ourselves to think about.
We are running out of time, but there is one question I always like to leave till the very end, which is, what bit of advice would you give to others now entering into the IT industry?
So I think what I will help any success, and it's something that's helped me throughout my entire career, is to take the initiative on your own to learn things and to challenge yourself, and do it on your own time as well. It takes investment in your career. And that means you'll learn a lot by what you're being paid for during your normal job work hours. But I think an important part of it is to make that investment in yourself outside of the work environment. That's a part of it. But keep in mind, it's your career. You own it. You're investing in it. So why shouldn't you invest in these things? That one great example of a person that I brought into the IT organization, he was actually a transportation planner. And he actually wanted to learn AI on his own. So he went to Best Buy, a local retailer here for electronics, and said, I want the best gaming computer you have. Now, this guy doesn't look like a gamer. His age, has a white beard, and they look at him like, okay, you're not like the normal gamer here. But he explained, I want the GPUs to do AI. So they gave him the right computer to do that. And he learned that on his own. He actually took that computer, added additional elements to it, and he learned and invested in himself. And in my career, that's what I've done. I've always gone to college while working full time. I always learn, always continually invest in yourself. And that's the best advice I can give. The other one would be your attitude rules your life. You've seen that quote from me, right, Dave?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
If you have a positive attitude, you'll get amazing positive results. Negative attitude, the contrary will happen. So keep that positive attitude, invest in yourself.
Fantastic. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you again today, David. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you once again for sharing those career insights and experience with our audience. It's been a true pleasure.
Well, Dave, thank you. It's my pleasure.
Please remember to subscribe to the podcast and stay tuned for more inspiring tech leaders.